lost all control. Her gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes in with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome back to the Paranormal Portal. I'm back. I missed you guys so much. I'm actually experiencing little chills just being back in the chair and doing the portal again. It's been crazy long. It was only a week, but it really felt like a lot longer. It really did. And I've been popping in here and there into chat rooms and stuff throughout the week on Kev Baker's show, on Paisley's shows when she's been streaming, and just saying hello to the people that I'm able to catch. But just want you all to know I missed you all, and I'm really thrilled to be back doing this. I'm really thrilled you guys are back here with me. It's just not the same without you guys. It's great to see you. Thank you all. Hey, Jake, good to see you, brother. It's just fun. It's like a reunion at this point. It's getting back together with family is what it feels like. And I hope you guys feel the same way. So I am back, and these are, of course, are the Night Terrors, our normal Sunday night program. I'm playing around with some scheduling ideas. I don't know if I'll be continuing to do 7 shows a week. It's just a lot. It's a lot to do. And this last week, I've been able to get so much done and work on so much that has needed to be done. And so, I don't know. I'm toying around with the idea. We'll do a full week this week and just see how it goes. But I'm throwing around some ideas here of, ways that I can accomplish more, as well as bring you guys to the shows that you guys want to see. So... but enough of that. This is the Night Terrors, our shorter version of the Paranormal Portal, 1 hour, full of supernatural paranormal stories. And I hope you all are ready, because it's time for bed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that means we are officially underway here on the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm still Brent Thomas, so we've got that going for us. But I've got some stories pulled up for you guys. But if you want to be a part of the show, as always, we got a phone number. It's right up there. But if you want me to read it out to you, you can call in at any time on the show, and I'll work to do my best to notice it and get you on the air with me. But the phone number is 720-923-0500. 720-923-0500, or it's right up there. If you want to call in, you got something paranormal to share, some thoughts about the paranormal that we're discussing, or whatever, feel free to do so. It'd be great to hear from you guys, but it's not a priority. It's not expected, but when it happens, it's a nice surprise. So, but welcome everybody, and I guess we can go. Rejuvenized Brent. I am a little bit rejuvenized. Yeah, I got to tell you, Jake. It was in some ways this week off was really important for me, because I'd been doing daily shows, 7 days a week, only missing a couple times at the most for about a year and a half, and it was a hell of a marathon. I love it. I still love doing these shows every time. It's not something I get tired of, but it's just, it just felt like I was starting to feel thin. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but just like I didn't have enough time to give to all the areas of both the show and my life. And so I needed to take a week just to, kind of recollect myself and stuff. So that's what happened. And, but I'm thrilled to be here with you. Yeah, it's great to see you too, Moog, and I'm glad that we're all back together. It's homecoming. I should have used that for tonight's title, the homecoming. Well, hindsight and all that 2020 crap. Hey, it's 2020. Boom. Thank you. It's free entertainment, folks. What do you expect? All right, so I got some stories pulled up. Let's get into these. Hold on, I got a cough. Okay, I'm better. I think I'm better, but we'll see how I do once I start reading. The first one tonight is coming from Rhode Island, that small little speck of land over on the East Coast there. But it's a small place, but there's a lot of crap going on there. This one says, as one drives west on Route 138 in Rhode Island, traveling from Newport to Interstate 95, one has to pass the University of Rhode Island, which is apparently abbreviated URI because they put it in parentheses. So just past the entrance to the athletic fields, there's a dirt road that exits off of Route 138 on the right-hand side. This small dirt road travels about 300 to 500 yards and then turns left and travels about 200 or 300 yards and comes back out onto Route 138. Down at the L formed by this old dirt road, you come to two historic cemeteries. The first one on the left and the second across the road on the right. And they are both at the turn of the dirt road. I've forgotten their numbers, both are small, and the last time I saw needed some TLC. As you drive westbound, you can see all the way down the dirt road to where it turns. And I know about this road and its cemeteries because I had attended a ghost hunt here with a couple of guys from my ship and some college students from URI. For them, it was a 1987 Halloween trick, but I learned a lot about that too late. The idiots from my ship were trying to scare the girls from the college into bed with them. They cracked bad jokes about the dead, and one of the drunk SOBs actually peed on one of the grave markers. That's a bad idea. I ended up taking a cab back to the base after staying at the graveyards and apologizing to those who rested there. It was late spring 1988, and I had orders to attend a school in Norfolk, Virginia. And I decided to drive down, new car, and the Navy was paying for room and board and mileage, so why not? It was 21:30-ish, or 9:30 p.m., on a clear Friday night as I passed URI and approached this dirt road on the right. My headlights were on high, and they lit up the road right down to the end where it turned. I saw a misty shape down on the far end of the road, and from my angle, it looked to be an old-fashioned horse-drawn hearse. Well, I slowed my car as I passed the entrance in this dirt road and tried to get a better look, and it still appeared to be just what I thought I'd seen. A horse-drawn hearse, but made out of fog or mist. I put on my blinker, knowing that the road I had been looking down rejoined Route 138 not too far ahead, and when it did, I turned onto it. As I reached the point where I had to turn right, I saw what appeared to be the thick fog dissipating under the brightness of my headlights. As it did so, I made out the form of the upper part of the hearse, and I saw the figure of a man in a top hat holding the horse's reins. The shape of torches on either side of the front of the hearse. I could see the top portion of the hearse all the way back to the rear, where there were two more torch shapes on the rear corners of the hearse. And I took this all in as it faded away, as if being torn apart in the wind. Well, I stopped the car and got out and looked around, and I could no longer see any mist at all, but I did hear the loud snort of a horse. The right side of my face got suddenly damp. As I wiped my cheek, I got back into the car and just sat there for a few minutes. I then said a quick thank you to the powers that be, those that rested there, for letting me see such a sight. Yeah, no kidding. That's pretty powerful. Now, I have to say, we had just had a call from a listener. I think it was a call. I'm pretty sure it was. My memory's kind of sketchy. That week feels like forever, so it feels like I'm trying to remember back to when I was a kid. But there was a caller that talked about a fog that seemed to recede when they shined light on it, but then when they put the lights down, the fog would come back. Yeah, it was, I can't remember where that guy was, but he talked about that, having visited there several times and now having lost the way because it was logged and everything's kind of gotten turned sideways. But that's the second time I've heard this of this ethereal fog that kind of retreats from light. Now, this story didn't so much as say that, but that's what I was thinking about when I was reading it. It's like, is the light have maybe a negative effect on that fog, its ability to cohesively stay together to illuminate a past event or something? And I don't know, but the fog that the gentleman was telling us about was what he believed to be a portal, and rightly so, because when they passed through it, they were in a totally different surroundings. So I can see how he came to that conclusion, but very cool. Apparently there are fogs out there, ladies and gentlemen, that are definitely powered by the paranormal. And you kind of think of that stuff as like, is that just some old legendary, wives' tale kind of stuff? And it sounds like the old yarns that people spin about ghost tales, the spectral locomotive or the figures that walk by seemingly made out of some kind of fog or mist. And so it's an interesting thought. But anyway, let's get to the next one. And this one is Vermont. It says, my name is Natalie. My name is Natalie. And a few of us went to Emily's Bridge on Saturday night at around 12 a.m. We had digital cameras and a cell phone, and we walked towards the bridge, and my friend just freaked out. We began taking pictures of the bridge and around it, and I then started using the cell phone to get some EVP. And we did get some there. When we got home, we checked the pictures, and we had a lot of orbs, and some of them had none, but a lot had them. As I was standing on the bridge getting my picture, when we looked at them, there was a glowing white orb right next to me. It looked like someone standing right behind me. Then my aunt accidentally called my friend Emily's name, and when we watched the video, we heard, "Get off my bridge." And it was no one's voice that was with us. The EVP we got when I asked if she had died there, I got a yes and "get off my bridge," a woman talking and a woman's laughter. In some pictures, there were faces. And we were taking the EVP. When we were taking the EVP, I mentioned that if someone was there, please touch me and my cousin. Well, at the time in the pictures that were taken, there was someone following us, but just to the edge of the bridge. And we did see figures crouching down by the wall. All of this actually happened. When we go back, we're going to bring a lot of batteries because they drain so very quickly. Yeah, it comes up all the time, those draining batteries. All right, let me pull up some more. I actually had those open on my computer for over a week because they were from last Thursday night. I had pulled up a bunch that we didn't end up getting to. So it happens. All right, let me get a few more pulled up here and we'll get back to reading and entertaining you properly. So did you guys miss me? Did you miss the portal? Are you glad we're back? I'm like fishing. I don't know. It's such a big part of my world. And when I wasn't doing it, it was like, wow. I felt just, kind of mundane. I felt like I wasn't, even though I was doing a lot of things, I felt like I wasn't doing anything because I wasn't doing the show. Pretty weird, huh? Does Paranormal Portal have coffee mugs? We do, Aussie. And you can see the coffee mugs. If you guys don't mind a quick Paranormal Portal infomercial, let me pull it up. I will. And the links, of course, are in the description. But you have to go to Teespring, our Teespring site, and I'll pull it up. And Don did a great job pulling together a lot of different coffee mugs and stuff and shirt designs. He's been a madman at this, so check it out. But I'm going to put it up on screen right now so you guys can see it. This is our Teespring site if you want to help support the show. This goes a long way. There's a coffee cup mug design from Don himself. He came up with this really cool rocker design, and that's really cool. It kind of reminds me of a biker's vest, like the biker gangs. I think that looks pretty good. Nice job, brother. And there's several others as well with some sayings, on there. One of which is the clothes that I use on every show. The Be Good, Be Kind, Be Nice one, and then T-shirts with just the logo on it, and more variety of stuff, and some stickers. Play with the kids with Paranormal Portal stickers. I don't know. I'm probably not a good salesman, but anyway, yes, this is our Teespring site. So the link again is in the description, but it's teespring.com/stores/paranormal-portal. And you can check it out at your leisure or your leisure, depending on where you're from, because they got both. Apparently they got both. All right. So there are coffee mugs though. Absolutely. Okay, let me get back to this. So we're going to go to Arizona on this story. That's Jess's stomping grounds, and I think it's also Taz. I'm so getting a Paranormal Portal coffee mug, as I'm always drinking coffee whilst watching the portal. Very cool, brother. I hope so. Kathy Spencer, Brent, your vocal is so energy-filled tonight. I love you too. Thank you. I guess that's what a week will do for a guy. No, I mean, I think it's because I'm excited, to be honest with you, to be excited to be back doing the show. And truth be told, I had a few people reaching out to me over the week going, come on, are you just going to sneak in a show tonight? You're going to just give us one show. And it was really flattering. It was really nice to hear that. But I stuck to it. I told you guys I was going to be gone a week, and I didn't want to just kind of go, hey, whoops, kidding, I'm back. No, I wanted to use that time because it was really important. But yeah, it was really flattering that, it means that much to you guys. That's just really humbling. Thank you so much. But again, we're going to Arizona, and let's see what's going on in Arizona. This is a medium-length story. It says, my first experience with the photograph. I don't know how it's starting out with the photograph. Was on a weekday afternoon. I don't understand. It says The Ghost of Wilcox is the name of the story. Was a weekday afternoon several years ago. I'd been hired to serve legal papers on the city of Wilcox, Arizona. At this point, you should know that Wilcox is a small cowboy town about 70 miles southwest of Tucson, and my day had been lousy, causing me to leave late for my trip to Wilcox. And when I arrived at about 4:15 p.m., the receptionist said, I'd have to wait in the lobby for my contact person. The offices of the city of Wilcox are located in the beautifully refurbished train station of yesteryear. I've always had a fascination for old photographs, and today was no exception. There were probably half a dozen turn-of-the-century photographs hanging on the walls of the small cabin but open lobby area. On the small but open lobby. How did I say? I thought I said cabin. Where the hell did I get cabin? Sorry. I'm out of practice. But hanging in the lobby area. One such picture depicted a group of about 60 individuals standing on the porch of the railway station. And this was not a posed photo, but rather a candid remembrance. I can't explain the magnetic draw that caused me to focus on a specific old-timer, but my captivation was rewarded with what I perceived to be about a 20-degree drop in temperature. The hair on my arms stood at attention. As my knees grew weak, I had to sit down. Moments later, the lady that I'd been waiting for appeared. We conducted our business just before closing time, and I was able to take one last look at the photograph. The same conditions repeated themselves. My friend Dave had come along for the ride, and Dave does not share my appetite for the paranormal. The trip home was silent, and I raked through the memories of my grandfather and how he had attended many of the residents. He had attended many of the residents in the small towns of southern Arizona. He was one of 2 doctors whose transportation consisted of a horse and a buggy. I'd like to believe that there was some connection between the old man in the photo and my grandfather. Maybe they actually knew each other. I have no proof of this, but it continued to haunt me, and a few months later, I took a day off, gathered Dave, and we returned to Wilcox. And this time we got there in plenty of time for me to see the photograph again, and the same conditions returned for a third time. I knew that there was something here that was hiding just below my ability to perceive it. I asked the receptionist if there was anyone who might know about the picture. It appeared that the workforce was just far too young to be of any help, and I was able to get a photocopy of the photograph, which I have attempted to investigate through various newspaper offices in southern Arizona. There is no conclusion as yet to my experience. I'll continue to look for possible answers, and if there is anyone out there that has any information about the Old West in Cochise County in southern Arizona, please contact me. Well, that story's kind of old. That one's from 2008, so I don't know if this person found what they were looking for or not, but I do kind of share that fascination with old photographs. I think it's kind of cool to go into, towns that display their heritage, display their history through series of old photographs. And my hometown had plenty all over the place. It was a historic town, and it was maintained and is maintained pretty much as a historic town, although they did through the generations wipe out a few of the more pristine old architecture kind of buildings, but there's still a lot standing there. And I would always love to go to the historical society and check out the old pictures, because it's, I don't know, you can feel, you can just and it sounds stupid, but it's like an emotional snapshot to the past. And that sounds blatantly obvious, and I understand that, but I don't know, for me, I just, it feels like just for a moment I'm there, and I can kind of feel what the world was like there. And I don't know how to explain it other than that I think that those old photographs are truly windows through time, that, if you just kind of let yourself go, you can maybe live just in a moment for a brief glimpse into that world. And I don't know, I just think it's incredibly profound. And then I think, God, these people were tough. God, those people were tough. I mean, if you think of us today, we're just a collection of cream puffs. We really are. These people in those old photographs, man, they had to scratch everything out of the land around them. I mean, really, they did carve a nation, and that is nothing short of spectacular. And they didn't do it with all of the conveniences and ease that we have today. Everything was manually done. My God, they hand carved a railroad across this nation, and roads and highways and bridges and my God, I mean, it's just Herculean when you think of the scope of those achievements and what they did and how they had to accomplish those things. And it was just all by their blood, sweat, and tears, So you've got to give the past a big nod, because those people, they were cut from steel. They were cut from steel. That's all I can say. But take it or leave it, but I definitely have a healthy respect for the past. And I think that, we probably would do ourselves some benefit by revisiting those old wisdoms in many ways, not only spiritually, but just in how they conducted themselves. I think we've forgotten so much, because it's easy to be a jerk now. It's just easy to be a jerk. So anyway, I'm not going to spiderweb and spiral into being a preachy son of a gun tonight. So I'll just keep going here. We're going to go to Colorado. And it says, I was expecting my first child at the time that I went camping. Dumb, dumb, dumb. It's dumb, dumb, dumb. And as I was in my first trimester, and the morning sickness was horrible, we went to the Colorado River and camped out at one of many camping locations along the waterfront. I don't remember the exact location, but I should have told my husband, let's go home. The first thing I want to mention, if you see a huge dead snake hanging from a tree, take it as a warning. I didn't, and we set up camp nearby. It was hot, it was dirty, and the water looked muddy, and I had all day long nausea from the pregnancy, and all I wanted to do was sleep, and was not having a good time. The tent was musty smelling, and I didn't know how I was going to muddle through 2 days. My poor husband was trying to help me, but he went off walking a few times. I have to admit, I was grouchy and absolutely miserable, being pregnant and trying to get comfortable on top of a sleeping bag, not comfy on an overly sensitive body. The first evening we hiked up a short trail to the hilltop peak. It was stunning up there. The view was amazing, and you could see the flowing waters of the river. I tried to ignore the waves of nausea as the sun was almost gone and the need to vomit was almost overwhelming. Little did I know at the time the nausea would become worse. My husband tried to be a gentleman to help me down the hill, but I would have no part of it. My stubborn nature was rubbed raw by all this camping stuff, and he left me he left me behind in the dark. Oh, that was a lovely trip. I have to admit it was all my fault. I wasn't very nice to be around, but anybody who's had morning, afternoon, and evening nausea, you can relate. I made my way down the loose dirt and rocks and slid down onto my backside a couple times. I wasn't sure of the landscape and didn't want to fall in the dark. Well, it got really dark out there, and I mean pitch black. No campfires greeted my eyes, and I tried to remember which way we came. I stood in the blackness trying to decide which way to go, and it was a cracking sound that pulled me away from my thoughts, and I turned my ear towards the sound, and it sounded like someone coming towards me, but I didn't see a thing. Footfalls were lumbering towards me, and it sounded like someone wearing boots. They shuffled along the stones and broke many small branches along the way, and I started to hear heavy breathing as well. And it sounded like someone was laboring for each breath. This sounds exactly like a Sasquatch. Not so much like a ghost story. My heart started to beat a little faster, and I was sure it wasn't my husband come to look for me. He had on a pair of tennis shoes and rubber soles, and the person walking toward me was thick and heavy. My husband is tall and slender. I wanted to call out for my husband, but I didn't want to draw attention to myself in the dark. So I sat down on the ground and hugged my knees to my chest, and I figured I'd wait until the unknown person passed me by, and then I would try and find my way back to camp. I took the time to look around me, and all I could see was more of the same inky darkness met my gaze at every turn. And it hit me then. I wasn't feeling any nausea at that moment. Hunger took me over, and my stomach started to growl. I placed my hands over my stomach, willing it to shut up. The sound was audible to anyone approaching me, and here I sat, alone in the dark. I realized I was holding my breath, and taking in a slow drink of fresh air, I exhaled and listened to the night around me, and I didn't hear the walking any longer, but I saw a glow to my left. I tried to focus on the light, but it was moving around. The light became more blue and more white, and it had a yellowish mist surrounding the edges. Oh, great. I've been found out. Yet again, here I was in the middle of nowhere, and this is another entity coming to ask for help. Or it could be to torment me. I never knew what to expect. Well, I decided to stand, and that's when it hit me. The smell of death. It's not a good smell. In an instant, the nausea was back, and I found myself retching into my shoes. I felt horrible, and the smell of death lingered in my nostrils long after the odor of my vomiting dissipated. And I wiped my mouth with the bottom of my shirt and looked around, and the glow is still off my left shoulder, and it hasn't come any closer. I knew I was supposed to go over there, but I didn't feel like it. Pregnant or not, I knew I had to find out what this entity wanted. So I pushed myself forward, walking slowly, carefully in the darkness, and I used the light it was giving off as a beacon to guide me. It was strange that I didn't see any campfires or lights. Was I making a bad decision by walking towards this ethereal being? Well, I just prayed I would be okay. It took me around 20 minutes to get to the area where the entity stood. He was a big ghost, probably 6'3", around 300 pounds, 350 pounds, and he stared past me, not seeming to notice me approaching him. He was watching for something or someone. In the blink of an eye, I found him standing directly in front of me. I stared up into his round face, and his eyes were black as night, and I saw the bullet hole in his temple. Had he killed himself? I knew he was waiting for me to tell him what had happened. And when they appear in such a confused state, and this one was anxiety-ridden, I had to be very gentle, and I asked him what was his last memory, and he said he couldn't remember. He kept hitting himself in the head as though jarring something to remember. And I took a step away, but he stepped closer to me, drawing on my energy and that of my baby. I wasn't feeling strong at all, so I sat down at his feet, and he quickly followed suit, sitting on his knees and ankles. I had trouble hearing him as he faded in and out, and I knew I had to get his story soon and send him on, but he kept wallowing in panic. He kept saying his head hurt. It hurt so bad. His hands were now covering his ears, and he seemed to sway from side to side, and his eyes were closed. And I needed him to look at me, and he refused to open his eyes. What got his attention? I had another wave of vomiting, and I spewed it all over the ground where I sat. He was at rapt attention after that. I asked him if he knew he was deceased, and he shook his head in denial. He told me he was as much flesh and blood as I was. I told him to reach out and touch my arm, and he shook his head no. And it was then that I reached out and ran my hand through the entity. He fell back from me, surprised at seeing my hand go through his body. I saw the resignation in his eyes, and he finally understood. I asked him what year it was, and he told me 1937, and I told him it was now 1975, and I told him he needed to move on. He finally understood what I meant. Sometimes it isn't easy to convince them that they no longer belong in the physical world. I was glad he didn't ask me any questions. I just wanted to send him on and find my tent. The ghost asked me where his wife and children were, and I told him they were waiting for him on the other side, and I always tell them this so they'll anticipate moving on. He appeared to have died in his 60s, and this was the image he projected before me, since he couldn't remember how he died, and the bullet hole in his temple was a good indication of suicide. I had to assume this was the cause of death. I didn't know if he had killed himself out here, and it didn't matter. My main concern was sending on his soul, and he walked into the ethereal realm slowly and unsure, but he did get through. I never knew his name or why he had a bullet hole in his temple, and none of that mattered. He was finally where he belonged, and not in the physical plane any longer. I prayed he was at peace. To end my experience, I found my way back to the campsite, and 7 months later, I had a 7-pound, 7-ounce healthy baby girl. My daughter will be 33 years old, 3 days before Christmas. Wow, that's pretty cool. Huh. The life of a psychic. You gotta wonder what that would be like. Wow. That's pretty intense. That would be pretty darn intense. How you guys doing out there? You doing good? Everything good? Are the stories good? Is this the portal you remember? Or is it even better? Just wondering. Let's see what's going on next. We're going to go to Utah. This is my husband's story, but I have his permission to tell it because he'd like some feedback from others. And this happened in an apartment in Provo that we no longer live in. But while we did, many interesting things happened. My husband got up to use the restroom around 3 a.m. and he was turning on the hallway light when, for whatever reason, he looked towards the front door and saw a tall gray figure. This figure was upward of 6 foot and appeared to be in a dark grayish robe. He couldn't see its face. This entity was not see-through or misty or floating, but a very substantial, solid figure. He said that it didn't give him the slightest feeling that it was an evil or harmful entity, but he said it felt powerful. This entity seemed to shift its weight, like it was thinking about walking towards my husband, and that is when he ran into the bathroom and didn't leave it for a half an hour. When he told me about it in the morning, I asked him why he didn't wake me, and he said that he was trying to be considerate. Obviously, it was gone when he finally left the bathroom, and he hasn't seen anything like it since. Those apartments are really old, and for Provo, Utah, they're in a bad part of town. A lot of our neighbors had drug problems, which seemed to attract a lot of negative energy to all of the apartments. But like I said, it didn't feel evil to him, only that it was very powerful. I've been doing some research and can't quite find anything like this. So if you have an experience like this or have read something about an entity like this, I'd love for you to tell me about it. I don't know, a tall gray entity. That's a tough one. I don't know. Tall, gray, and powerful. It's the tough part is that there's, in my opinion, there's no reason that they always look one way or look another way. They can look however they choose to look. So I think they can choose to be 8 feet tall, or they can choose to be, the size of a pencil. I mean, it doesn't matter. They can be a little orb of light, or they could be, a huge giant. I don't know. In watching the Dead Files, and take it or leave it, but I think Amy Allen is probably a very legitimate psychic. I think the information she shares is really compelling, and I know that those shows are edited to some degree, but I don't know. I got a feeling that she's really experiencing what she says she's experiencing. And she's talked about that many times on her show of how entities will appear. They may appear in their death state. And I think that that's maybe a way of conveying that wordlessly. This is how I died. I think that I suppose she says they can be stuck in their death state, and that's why they appear that way. But I think sometimes they just want people to know what happened, like that's part of that whole unfinished business thing, is they don't want it to be forgotten. And who can blame them, especially if it was something tragic? Who wants that to be forgotten? You want some kind of acknowledgement. And so I think that that's probably why oftentimes they appear as these messes that they maybe were in their final moments, because they can just in an instant give you a whole story, or at least an understanding of what happened to them. So I think that it serves that purpose, but again, it's just me speculating. I don't know that for sure. All right, next we're going to go to Wisconsin, the land of cheese and Packers. All right, let's see what's going on in Wisconsin. I've kept the names of the story out of this story to keep the family anonymous, since we all have relatives there, and this is Wisconsin again. So I grew up in a little lakeside town in Wisconsin called Algoma. I don't know where that is. I had a cousin who drowned in an accident in a river a little over a block from where they lived. I was younger at the time, probably about 11 or 12 years old. And I didn't know a lot about the exact details of his death, and the reason that I even mentioned this is to give a little insight into the rest of his story. Thanks, Aussie. After my cousin passed away, my parents decided that we should move into the apartment that was once occupied by my uncle and aunts. It was a 4-bedroom house, so it was big enough for our growing family. And there are 4 bedrooms and 1 bath in this upstairs apartment. Our parents' bedroom and the room that they called the nursery was at the end, and the other 2 bedrooms were at the other end. The kitchen, bathroom, and living room separated the bedrooms. My oldest brother and I shared a bedroom, and even though there were 2 at that end of the house, my youngest brother slept down by my parents, and the unused room used to belong to my deceased cousin, and so it was used for storage only. I remember getting up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and of course, would always close the door. I would hear footsteps going back and forth outside of the door, and it sounded like someone going from my parents' bedroom and back to our bedroom. And when I would get done, I'd walk back and check on my brother, who would always still be sleeping. Then go down and check on my parents, who would still be sleeping as well. And this continued for years. When my mom decided that I was old enough to have my own room, I was moved into my cousin's old room, and that was also being used for storage, and my mom had painted the room a sunny yellow color to help me adjust. I had just a set of bunk beds that I slept on, and after the first couple of nights, it started. The first thing was the door. My parents installed a hook lock on the outside of the door to keep us kids out. And the door itself never shut completely tight, and I was sitting watching television on the bottom bunk, and all of a sudden the door sucked shut. Thinking it was my little brother playing tricks, I got up to open the door, except it wouldn't open. I started to panic and was really pulling on it, and all of a sudden it opened right up. I walked out in the living room to see it was dark and everyone was in bed. I walked next door to my brother's room to find him in a very deep sleep. It kept happening from that point on, and I never mentioned it to my mom, just to keep from upsetting her. One night I was watching television very late at night. I started to doze off, and as I often did, and all of a sudden I felt arms come across me as I laid there on my back and hold me down. It was like someone had their fingers laced together over my stomach, and at the same time the door sucked shut again. I panicked. I only lasted a minute or two, but as soon as it let up, I was out of there. She did mention to us years later that after we moved out that when we first moved into the apartment, she had put my brother in that room, but was having a problem getting him to sleep in there. He kept talking about the little boy who was playing cars with him. Excuse me. And she would constantly sit in the living room at night hearing him talking and would tell him to go to bed. And one night, after about the 50th time of yelling at him, she said she went to the door and as she opened it, saw my brother's Hot Wheel cars floating in a circle. She watched for about 30 seconds and looked over to see my brother sound asleep. She looked back to the cars in time to see them fall. She also mentioned that she used to hear footsteps going up and down the hall at all hours of the night, and she said that she used to say, "Go to bed," and say my cousin's name, and the walking would stop. I was 14 when we moved out, and nothing ever seemed to happen when we had other people over, but it seems that when we moved on, so did our ghost. Huh. That's wild. Wild stuff. Very, very cool. I think tomorrow night I'm going to showcase a couple of the projects that I was able to complete for the show. Sorry, I just mentally blocked. Suddenly, I couldn't even think of words. Words were not in my head anymore. Man, this is going quick. It's already 42 minutes into it, ladies and gentlemen. We're just cruising along here. There, that's better. I think that's better. Let me close that story and we'll get to the next one. And this one's coming from Wisconsin again. It's haunted places. My parents were looking for a new house to move to in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. And they found this house that my mom just fell in love with. The story of the house goes that there was an elderly woman who lived alone in the house with her cats. She used to call the police to come and check on her, but when they got there, she wouldn't answer the door. Sorry. My parents placed an offer on the house, but lost the house to two doctors, and my mom would still drive by the house almost every day since it was about a block away from where my grandparents were living. One day she noticed a realtor sign in front yard again, so she made an appointment with the realtor to view it, and after pulling up in front of the house, the occupant came running out, yelling and screaming at my mom. After she realized that my mom was there to meet the realtor and take a walk through the house, she calmed down and apologized for her outburst. That's crazy. She told my mom that something in the house had been driving her dogs nuts and that they were constantly growling and snarling at something. This, combined with the other things, had forced the former couple to move. When my parents moved in, they realized the doctors had started to remodel the kitchen, and she believed that was the reason for Mrs. Maples being so mean to the previous owners. My parents got the house and started moving in. Before they could even get the beds in, my mom couldn't wait to stay there. She was sleeping on a couch downstairs in the living room, and she started hearing music coming from the landing. Well, after walking around to find the source of the music, she tracked it down to a box packed with precious moment figurines. At the bottom of the box was a musical figurine that was turned on, and no one had opened that box, since my mom was the only one in the house. Mrs. Maples was also fond of playing tricks on my family living in the house. My grandmother used to come over and clean the house to help my mom out, and she would walk over every day for a couple of hours. And every now and then my grandma would come over and the stereo would come on. Walking After Midnight by Patsy Cline would start playing on the stereo in the small room. My mom had some things stored in that room, but first thought was that her grandsons were playing tricks on her. But upon checking on them, they were both sound asleep. My grandmother said that she told Mrs. Maples that she didn't mind her playing music as long as she played the good stuff. They got along well, and she would also sit and rock in the old rocking chair while Grandma cleaned. My dad wasn't as happy with her, and he used to be afraid of her scaring him while he was moving around the house. And If he went upstairs, he asked her to go downstairs and vice versa. She did have a little bit of a mean streak, and there were always people going in and out of their house, and it was always unlocked in case someone came over to visit. And one day, some of my brother's friends stopped over to see him. And when they knocked, they said an older woman called out to them, "Come in." Assuming it was my grandmother, they went in and walked all through the house to find that no one was home. I think the worst prank ever that she played was one night when my grandmother called the house. She said an older woman answered the phone and told her my mom wasn't there. She asked who she was talking to since she didn't recognize the voice, and the woman replied, "Mrs. Maples." My grandmother hung up and started yelling at my grandfather, and he calmly told her to call back and yell at them for teasing her. So she hit the redial, and when my father answered, she laid into him, and he calmly asked what she was yelling about, and she proceeded to fill him in and told him how much she didn't appreciate the joke that they were playing on her. He told her that the phone hadn't rung all night, and she was more than welcome to come over and check the caller ID. Wow. That's kind of hardcore. Mrs. Maples still runs that house. It sounds kind of cool, though, actually. I mean, it seems like she's in good spirits. But I'm bummed. Sorry, that was an unintentional pun. But, I mean, it's not like she's an angry ghost. It doesn't sound like anyway. She's just there. It's her house. She's not ready to leave it. So I guess she's staying. Just don't tear up her kitchen. Or there'll be hell to pay. Excuse me. I think I'm better. All right, next one is Hawaii. Wow. We don't get a lot of Hawaii, but we have been lately. We've been hitting a few, so this is kind of nice. It says, it was an interesting evening. I didn't make it to the small boat harbor before it got dark, but it wasn't for lack of trying. I had packed the dog, and off we went. The drive to Polpu Beach was only 12 minutes, but there's always so much to see going along the way. Rain was coming, and I could feel it in my head. My husband calls me the human barometer. I can tell you when it will rain within 2 minutes of it falling. This particular night, which was November 14th of 2008, the sky was hinting at rain, and then it got so black I couldn't see a thing. No stars, no signs of clouds, just muffled sounds of the ocean in the distance. We arrived at our favorite small boat harbor, and I pulled on into the area away from the water. The other side of the street is valley and open field, a much better area to take my dog for a quick potty run. Her, not me. But I'm bump. Of course it's her. The air was still that night. The trade winds had dropped off until there was no sign of any breeze. A branch on one old palm tree centered in the middle of the lot was barely moving. I can guarantee it was probably movement from a rat. Hey, it's the tropics. We get plenty of mice and rats out here. With all this greenery, there's plenty for them to feed on, and I let the dog out of the car, and she was really nervous, and it was not like here to stick so closely, or not like her to stick so closely by my side. It was 5 steps later when I saw them all. Out of the dark, they came at me. Blue and white balls of energy. Some researchers call them orbs, traveling souls, ghosts. I call the smaller lights just energy balls. There's a difference in the energy of a spirit or soul, and I can feel the difference, but they can travel along these energy balls, and they can travel along with these energy balls, and I don't know why, but they do. I saw a child that night. She formed from a larger blue-white misty ball. She came and went in a blink. I did take a picture, but these days I always travel with my camera, and you can go to my website to view the pics I took. Just click on the ghost seer at the top of my story page, or go to my profile, blah, blah, whatever. The dog had 3 to 5 white with blue sparks following her around, and she was not happy about it. There's a photo of her slinking around on the ground, and she was trying her best to avoid them. In conclusion, the energy balls were too many to count. The air felt electrical, and it made me feel a bit energized and woozy all at the same time. It was not floating dust, and there was no fireflies, By dark, I heard a few crickets in the tall grass and I saw crawling bugs, but not one flying insect in the air. It was pretty quiet over there. The area is very old and there's a lot of renovations in the landscape. Million dollar lots are being set up and huge tractors are tearing up the lava rock fields. And I've been told that they are digging up a few hundred acres, and I think this is why there's so much activity. Any ideas? Yeah, it sounds like there's ghosts. That's my idea. That's what I'm going to go with. I don't know. Sometimes, if I think they're always around. I think they're always here. Thank you, Julia, for posting the email. And again, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out the podcast if you haven't. We release podcasts 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They're available on Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, iTunes, and a whole bunch of other ones. But the last one we released is it's some stories about my dad. It was more of a personal one, and I had my mom on the show, and we talked about some of the weird things that had occurred since my dad's passing, and I posted a video that my mom took of my dad's old TV coming on and playing the Paranormal Portal. Read the caption; it'll make sense once you do. But if you listen to the show and then check out the video, it should give you some pretty good insight into what had gone on with my dad. He's still active. He's still showing up. He's always messing with the lights and turning off the lights on my mom when she's brushing her teeth and stuff, and changing her television station to music sometimes. Just, they got, I think it's Dish TV they got, or one of those. But yeah, I mean, just some strangeness. And they live out in the country where there's not other remotes anywhere near the range for where they live. So it's not like just some other signals coming from another remote somewhere nearby, because there's no houses near enough to utilize remotes that would affect their TVs. There's nobody anywhere near remote control range. So whatever's happening is happening because it just seems very intentional. So check it out. I think I called it "My Dad Still Visits" or "Dad Still Comes Home," something like that. "Dad Still Visits," I think is what I called the episode, now that I think about it. But check it out. It was, it's kind of a very personal story, but I ask you guys all the time to tell me what you've experienced. So this is just one example of me sharing some of the activity that I've experienced, and I do quite often on the show. But this was a podcast dedicated pretty much, not exclusively, but pretty much mostly regarding the experiences that we've had with my dad apparently coming home and letting us know he's there. Do you hear that static? I had static in my ear suddenly, so apparently he's still coming home. But anyway, I don't know. I guess that's going to be about the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It's our welcome back show, first time back on the air in a week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here and being with me. It means the world. Thank you. Just a whole bunch of you guys showed up tonight, so that to me is incredible. That means the world. So I'll be back again tomorrow night with another episode of the Night Terrors. I'm going to showcase a couple of the projects that I wrapped up this last week to you guys tomorrow night on the tail end of the Night Terrors show. So if you want to check out that, tune in tomorrow night right here on YouTube, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll be live and at it. So I hope you guys will be there. Check out the podcast. If you want to follow what's going on with the show, please follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. And make sure you're subscribed and ring the bell for all notifications. That way, hopefully, if it works, you'll be notified when we do go on the air. I might be doing some test streams tomorrow, just so you know. So if you see the portal pop up, I'm probably not doing a daytime show. I'm just testing things out because YouTube is always upgrading their stuff, and they're going to phase out the old way of doing it. And I'm still using the old way to broadcast these streams. So I've got to test it out to make sure that I can verify that the new way is working for me, or I got to troubleshoot that. So if you see tomorrow or the next day that the streams are popping up, then that's what's going on. Now, on the 6th of March, Don and I are heading over to Medellin Falls in Washington to go to a Bigfoot town hall gathering over there, hosted by Stephen Majors and Extreme Expeditions Northwest. And we're going to be there amongst the programs that are going on, and we'll be doing some live streaming from there. But the actual gathering will be on Saturday the 7th. So if you're anywhere in that area, we'd love to see you stop by. You get a chance to hang out with Don and I. We'd love to meet all of you if any of you are in that neighborhood. But again, that's over in Medellin Falls in Washington State, and that'll be on the 7th. And then we're also put it ahead on your calendar. I don't know if it's really important to mention it right now, but we are going to the International Bigfoot Conference over in Washington State as well in September. So make sure to, try to get there. That'd be really cool. And if you love the Bigfoot, then you're definitely going to want to be a part of that event. There's some huge things going on. By the way, on the 7th, Adam Davies is going to be speaking at the Medellin Falls event, along with, I got to keep looking up his name because he's not oh man, I'm just spilling stuff now. He's not a name I'm overly familiar with, but I've checked into his work a little bit since I've become familiar with him, and he's like another Jeff Meldrum. And his name is Dr. Robert Alley, and he's from Alaska, and he's got a book out there. It's called Rain Coast Sasquatch, the Bigfoot of Southeast Alaska. So definitely check it out, but he's going to be speaking on the 7th over there as well. Adam Davies has a new book out as well, so there's lots of great things out there to check out, but hopefully some of you guys can make it. That'd be fun, and it'd be great to meet you guys. So, all right, I guess that's going to wrap it up for me. I can't think of anything else. I missed you guys. Thank you so much for all coming back, and I'll be back tomorrow night again to do it all over again, so I hope to see you guys here, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here on YouTube. I'll be doing another portal, so love y'all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. I love you guys, and sweet dreams.